So I want to talk about President Biden. It's not a blast from the past. It's very, very current. All right. So in America, we elect a president, the most powerful man or woman in the world, and we expect that person to bring a skill set into the job. Now, that doesn't mean that you like the president or you support him or because liberal people are not going to like conservatives and vice versa. Okay. And then a lot of people just don't like Trump because of his demeanor. So, but the expectation is after an election that there will be a skill set and responsibility in the White House. And I wrote a book called Confronting the Presidents, and I went down all the presidents from George Washington to Trump and how they handled that responsibility. Some of them didn't handle it well. But with Biden, we have a unique case. I believe, based on very strong evidence, that Joe Biden did not know what he was doing much of the time. He was cognitively impaired. And that is what is being investigated by the House of Representatives right now. My statement. They're calling witnesses, as you may know. Now, this story hasn't gotten nearly the attention it should have because of Epstein and all of the things like that. Putin, Hamas, all of that. But it's there and it's ongoing. So let's review real quickly. Last week, the House Oversight Committee, I called in Biden's personal physician, okay, Kevin O'Connor. And O'Connor showed up and took the fifth. Very strange, because O'Connor's not under a criminal referral. Nobody's saying that O'Connor committed a crime. He might have, I guess, if he put out a fraudulent medical report on Biden. And it is very suspicious that Biden now has prostate cancer, but O'Connor did not pick it up in his examination of Biden. But anyway, O'Connor comes in with his lawyers and said, I'm not going to answer a question. Constitutional right, I can't convict him of anything. Neither can you, if you want to be fair, if you want due process. But very strange, is it not? Okay. Yesterday, we have a guy come in, Anthony Bernal, Bernal. He was chief of staff to First Lady Jill Biden. There is a school of thought, and I concur to much of it, that Mrs. Biden, Dr. Jill, whatever you want to call her, was calling a lot of shots. A lot of shots. Just like Nancy Reagan did in the Reagan White House. Very similar. So Bernal comes in, and guess what he did? Took the fifth, not answering any questions. No. Now, everybody should be now heightened to what the deuce is going on here. So Karine Jean-Pierre, she's next. She's the ex-press secretary, and then a whole bunch of other people are going to be subpoenaed. Ron Klain, he was White House chief of staff. Jeff Zients, he took Klain's place. Michael Donnellan, he was a big advisor. Vinay Reddy, on and on and on and on. They're all going to be called. They're all going to take the fifth. Nobody's going to engage in conversation about Joe Biden's mental and physical acuity. Very disturbing. But here's an interesting wrinkle. A few weeks ago, I was on News Nation with Chris Cuomo, who is a Democrat. Everybody knows that. Now, I like Cuomo. He's a pal. But we have some very spirited debates on News Nation. And one of them was how Biden conducted himself with the pardons and the auto pen and all of that. And it got around to the point that I believe that Biden was not in control, did not go from day to day knowing what was happening. And I said, what do you think about that? To Cuomo. And Cuomo said, I'm paraphrasing here, I don't really care. I don't care if he had prostate cancer that was missed. I don't care if he wasn't on his game. And I went, what? And Cuomo stuck to that position. It wasn't that important. Government functioned, and it did, under people that nobody knew who they were, but they were there in those positions, and they called the shots. Look, Joe Biden pardoned about 4,300 individuals, more than any other president in history by far. Nobody else is close. More than 4,000 people were pardoned by Biden. You think he knows or remembers any of them other than Hunter and his brother James? He remembers that. He pardoned all of them because they received an enormous amount of money, millions, from foreign entities. And they could very well have broken the law. And so Biden, I'm not going to, and I would have done the same thing if I were, my family are a bunch of grifters, and I do believe the Bidens are that. I would have pardoned them too, okay? But that, it's a normal human emotion, but it's not looking out for the folks. So Biden didn't know who he was pardoning, and everybody had an agenda in the White House, so they just kept throwing his stuff in. Biden couldn't sign them, didn't want to sign them, and the people didn't want to even bring it to his attention. So they used an auto pen. Biden didn't even know about it. That's what happened. The overwhelming evidence points to that. So the New York Times calls up Biden. Biden says, I'll give you 10 minutes, which is extremely unusual. And Biden says, oh, no. I knew about all of the pardons and all. Does anybody on earth believe that? Problem is you can't prove it one way or the other unless a whistleblower emerges from the Biden White House and says, look, the guy was delirious. He was taking a nap all afternoon, and then he was in bed at 8:30 at night. I mean, we just paraded these pardons through to the auto pen machine, and they were signed. You would need a whistleblower, somebody who was there to testify to that. It's possible you might get it. Possible that might emerge in a book or something like that. But right now, Biden can say to the New York Times, which he did, yeah, I knew, but I know too many of them, so I just farmed it out. I don't believe it. Again, if you were to go out on the street and say, what's more important? The Biden dementia auto pen pardon story or Epstein? Number one, most of the people you're talking about wouldn't even know about the Biden dementia story because it's not been widely reported. But everybody knows about Epstein. That's a little frightening. Not to diminish the Epstein story, as I said many, many times, the Attorney General Bondi should go out and clarify as much as she can clarify. That's what should happen. And I'm not going to guess why it didn't happen because that's irresponsible. But the Biden story is 1,000 times more important to this country than Epstein. But I don't want anybody associated with Epstein who committed crimes get away with them. I don't. That's horrible. But I do want definition of what President Biden was doing in the White House for 4 years. And the final thought is this. The man was a catastrophe as president. Second worst in history to James Buchanan, the guy who just booted the Civil War and dumped it in Lincoln's lap when he came in. Buchanan was a coward, incompetent. Oh my God, when you read Confronting the Presidents, you'll see how bad this guy was. He was worse than Biden because 1 million people died because of the Civil War, at least. Biden, though, on policy, there's never been anybody. Biden made Jimmy Carter look like FDR. That's how bad Biden was. Yes, it's my opinion, but it's an educated opinion. It's based on facts. So anyway, summing up these hearings, House Oversight Committee, they're going to continue. The press will largely ignore them. All the Biden people will take the fifth. And whether we ever get it, I don't know. It will take a whistleblower. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me, Bill O'Reilly, on this YouTube bonus. We'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching. To view full episodes of the No Spin News anytime, sign up to become a BillO'Reilly.com premium or concierge member today.